relax on, basically, yeah.
Thank you. And Aklek, employability is a focus in your manifesto. The university already has a talent bank scheme offering jobs in the university and with external companies. How will what you're proposing be different?
So yeah, as you said, we got talent bank, but I've been literally around asking people how many people know about talent bank. So this is one issue in Marylebone, and not only Marylebone, in all the other campuses, that the university provides so many resources, but we're not able to promote them in the right way. So not every people are able to access to these resources because they're not aware of this. And secondly, for employment again, I know that the university has different connection with different organizations and employers and companies. And I want to expand that to more companies and more organizations so Westminster students are able to have a bigger chance to get into placements or graduate schemes into these organizations.
Thank you. And Jamila, what type of needs do you feel are not being met for students on different courses in AB and WBS?
This is one of my main points because I spoke to quite a lot of students in architecture and built environment students, and they came to me saying, basically no one hears our issues. I spoke to an architectural and technology student, and he was like, we have 6 modules from the start of semester, and they have that 6 modules throughout the year, and they come in twice a week, sorry. And they said that we don't know who to contact. We don't know who to say this issue to because we literally don't even know who to speak to. So how to do it, I wanted to run a student panel for course reps for basically architect students or built environment students and tell them in this student panel, tell me your issues, and then after that I want to run a panel for academics, say Faculty of Architecture, and say that, look, your students came to me, tell me this issue, is there any way we can communicate and find a way to improve this so that they are constantly motivated to keep learning. Thank you.
And Aklek, you've mentioned improving university rankings. Why do you think this should be a priority, and how would you bridge the gap between students and academics?
All right, so yeah, that's right. So I've mentioned that the NSS ranking of the university, actually I noticed that the NSS ranking of the university is not really high, but I believe, as we know, the NSS ranking is based mostly on the students' feedback. So I'm actually planning to have a platform where all the students are able to give their feedbacks, either positive and negative, because the only feedbacks that we get, they are negative. Because, for example, if you have, like, let's say a complaint, you just go and give the feedback. But if you are like fine with it and you're happy within the university, you don't really raise your voice. So an NSS ranking would really help to increase our reputation as students in let's say, job interviews and in other external companies. And you asked about the bridging the gap between the teachers and the academics and student union and students. So I've also spoke to different academics within our university, and I found out that they don't really have a good relationship with the student union in Marylebone. So to bridge this gap, I'm actually planning to have a academic board for the student union, so we are able to get their feedbacks as well based on our decisions. So we can actually see and balance our decisions based on their feedbacks.
There's been a lot of mention about social space, and social space is a common problem for Marylebone. What do you think needs to be done about this?
As I've said before, I'm aware of the limitation of the funds of the university currently has, but in terms of finding new social spaces, I've kind of found social spaces, but I'm not entirely sure if I could actually do something about it. But as long as the SU tells me that we do have money for it, I will have a plan ready for them so that I know what I'm going to do about it.
And you mentioned you have a plan, so if you did have money invested by the SU, what would the plan be?
The plan would be, I thought of an outdoor social space. So we have Marylebone halls, they actually have an outdoor social space. So I was thinking, during the summer, why can't we have an outdoor social space for students to kind of enjoy the summertime, basically, and find for them to relax, because social space is for socializing, not uni work. That's why we call it social space. And also, we have rooms in the basement that are barely used, so we can actually use those spaces for example, extra sofas for students to relax in.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the social space is actually an issue in Marylebone. So what I've been doing recently is basically exploring our campus. So I've been exploring to find a space where we actually expand the social space in Marylebone. So I was thinking of making use of the space that the university is not actually using during the year, but it's just using during like certain events, for example, exams or exhibitions. So yeah, I found these rooms in the basements that the Marylebone has that are not actually being used during the whole year. So I wanted to turn these as a social space for students, and probably bring in as the Regents has pool tables and table tennis, so people can actually enjoy themselves in these social spaces.
Thank you. We have a Twitter question from Ludo. She says, do you believe academics' unconscious bias in marking assessment is an issue in Marylebone, and what do you plan to do about it?
Good. That's actually one of my main points, because I've experienced it myself. Basically, I spoke to students from other campuses, so Regents, the people that study politics. They told me, I was like, what do you think of anonymous coursework? And they were like, we've always had anonymous coursework. And I was just like, okay, if you guys have it, why can't business schools have it, or architecture students have it as well? If other universities does it as well, why can't University of Westminster do it? What I'm planning to do is to, there's this, as Ludo said, there's this unconscious bias and conscious bias marking. So it kind of protects the students to like feel safe that they won't be judged upon themselves. So their work will be judged based on the efforts they made. And it also protects the markers themselves of accusation of bias marking as well. I want to create a good relationship with the academics and tell them that other universities does this, why can't we do it? It's just literally, it's just a button in Blackboard and turn it in. And you don't really need to know, you can tell the effort the student made by the work they created. You don't need to know their name. So yeah, that's one of my...
Yeah, that is actually a really good point. Because I believe, yeah, it is. Okay, so because I think that academics should be able to mark the courseworks without knowing the name of the student, because that makes it equal for everyone. Because let's say that a teacher makes an idea of a student, by looking at the name, they can mark it based on that idea. So it's not really hard to hide a name in a coursework and make them mark anyways, because the marking is the same way, and they'll be able still to mark it without knowing the name.
Thank you. I've got another Twitter question from Ludo. So what's your beef with microwaves? Should we start with you?
Yeah, sure. So, so we have one microwave in Marylebone, which is inside the student union office, and it's not always open. And okay, so we were thinking of bringing in more microwaves based on funds provided by the university, or either relocate the microwave, because after 5 we don't have access to the microwave anymore. Okay. Yeah, so we want to bring the microwave outside the student union office and make it accessible for everyone.
Can I say something? That's very true, but I've actually asked the old SABs. There are microwaves around the university. You kind of just have to know where they are. I think that in terms of having more microwaves, we should just have arrows saying where the microwaves are. So in terms of like closing up the office closing at 5 so people can't use the microwaves. I do agree with you, but we do have microwaves you need to maintain them because some students, there have been issues of, I'm not entirely sure what campus it was, but something was left in the microwave so it kind of created a spark. So it was Harrow. And basically you constantly need to check up on it because some students just leave like fork in there or something that causes it. Yeah.
Did you have anything to respond to that?
Oh yeah. I knew about the microwaves in our campus, but no one really knows about them because they're in hidden places. So people can have access anyways to this. So yeah, the arrow thing is a good idea. So we should make arrows to the microwaves if you wanna go to the microwave.
Joseph, make some arrows next Monday. To direct people. We've got another Twitter question from Dan. Marylebone has a massive postgrad community. What will you do for them, Jamila?
Marylebone has the highest ranking of postgrads. I am aware of that. They come under the WBS and ABE in terms of meeting their needs. So I want to hold course reps meeting with postgrads as well and tell them and hold a student panel for them as well and tell them their issues so then I can also speak to the academics of the postgrads and tell them that, look, your postgrad students have this issue. Is there any other way we can communicate this problem and fix it?
We do have so many postgrads in our campus. And I've been to the student forum, was couple of days ago, I think, yeah. And we were actually engaging with the postgrads in our university, in our campus. And I was thinking of engage the postgrads with the undergrads as I found out that postgrads are more engaged with their studies and academic things than the undergrads. So I really want to find out why this is happening and how this could involve the postgrads with the undergrads as well, and have probably have the same way to study and progress with their studies.
Thank you. I have a question for you, Jamila. How do you plan to further accountability for sabbatical officers, and why do you think it needs to be improved?
It's at it's our particular SAB who, at my campus, who we needed but weren't there. So in terms of further accountability, if I do get VP for Marylebone, I want students to come to me with no problems at all. I'll be at my office, you can email me and I'll respond back. And I've been... in terms of further improving it, I think the current SABs are introducing student council, of which where students can actually tell the sabbatical officers what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong and what could be improved, which I would like to be part of if I do get VP next year. And I also attended a scrutiny panel, which I was only allowed to watch because we weren't allowed to ask questions because we had to be trained for it. But I feel like that shouldn't be the case. I feel like students should be able to just ask the questions they need whenever they want or whenever they need.
Akhlaq, you have no mention of ABE students. Do you want to explain why? Or?
Well, actually, I've been recently in touch with the architecture department of Marylebone, and I've come up with different issues that they have, and I want to work. On. So they come up with the fact that they want to have more software trainings, and they don't receive enough software trainings. As in, they just receive it with internal resources, but they want to have an external resource of software training. So I'm looking forward to work on this and make more connection with external people that can bring in more, they can bring in more services to our university for architecture students.
Thank you. We have a Twitter question from Dan. He says, Marylebone has a large halls community. How will you help and support them?
That's also actually another one of my main points. So being part of the women's basketball, I'm the captain. I actually have students that live in Marylebone Halls, and I constantly hear her talking about I have to go through uni all the time just to get in, especially when they are in the morning when they come home. It's just packed with students because they're rushing to their lectures. And you know how they say that you shouldn't really mix home with work. So they don't really feel comfortable. Let's say that they're just in their PJs and they just want to grab food to the corner shop. They can't do that because they're surrounded by students who are there, you know, all dressed up and stuff, and you can't be comfortable. They have to go through uni to go to their rooms. And they were saying that they actually have a door at the back that they can't go through. So what I want to do is I want to speak to the hall managers in Marylebone and ask them, is there any way we could have another entrance? I'm aware of the security reasons, but it comes to the happiness of the students that live there as well, because we don't want them to have a bad rating, and we actually forget about them because they live all the way at the back of business school. So, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that is actually true. The fact that they only have the entrance through the university, so they need to go through the university to get in their rooms. And it's a really good point that we should actually make a different entrance and exit for them. So we do have a door that is closed for them. So yeah, opening it would really help the rest of the people that live in.
Thank you. I also have another question from Twitter. Marylebone has 2 faculties. How will you ensure that ABE students feel involved, and how will you engage the students to get together? Should we start with you?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so yeah, we do have 2 faculties, and to be honest, we actually all students in Marylebone are facing the same problems. So I believe that one way to make the both faculties engage would be solving this problem together as a whole student body in Marylebone. And yeah, that's actually involving both of the faculties to solve this problem and face them together. That's...
Thing is, I actually spoke to architect students, they're currently first years, and they said to me, I didn't even know that Marylebone are for architect students, because you see when you cross the street, cross Baker Street, you just see Westminster Business School. It doesn't say Architect and Built Environment School as well. And in terms of kind of showing people that it's 2 faculties, we need words saying Westminster Architect and Built Environment at that building, because there's no text saying that. So students don't know that it's actually students just think it's a business school. It's actually an architect and built environment student as well. So in terms of like getting them together, if I were a sub, I would try and find or hold an event to get to know your other faculty. I just thought of this now. You could just hold an event and have people from different courses and just talk to each other. It's like having the orientation week, but not just people within your course, but you also have people within different courses as well.
Thank you. I'm going to open up to audience questions now for the candidates.
Sorry, I had my question written down. You mentioned NSS and the survey. The NSS is actually quite volatile, and there are many students who want to boycott the NSS, and the SABs had dealt with that this year, actually, because it relates to higher fees. So if you get more positive feedback and the higher ranking you are, the more the fees increase. How do you plan to tackle that in terms of NUS, the students, and the student union?
Well, yeah, that's true. The fees are actually, they have raised of £250 because of NSS. We tried, the student union tried to boycott the survey, but it wasn't. Sorry, am I answering your question?
Kind of. The student union didn't boycott the
No,
survey.
they didn't. They didn't.
They didn't.
Yeah, I know.
They decided not to.
Not to, yeah. So one thing is that actually NSS ranking in certain points helps students to have a reputation behind them. By keeping the NSS survey, because we weren't able to get rid of it, by keeping it, I think Westminster can actually have a advantage of having it by getting more positive feedbacks from students and actually go in a higher ranking within the whole ranking, because we are not able to get all the positive feedbacks.
So our reputation is more important than our fees and our debts.
That's not my point. Is the fact that we weren't able to get rid of the NSS ranking. I think we should be using it as a benefit for the university. That was the point behind it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Does
anyone else have a question for the candidates? Oh, apologies.
It's kind of just a comment in general, like to add on to the Westminster Business School. So in your manifesto, you've kind of just said Westminster Business School is a successful thing for this and that. Don't you think, since you are running for VP for Marylebone in general, kind of referring to it as a business school, don't you think that's kind of going to affect how the architecture and the other students in the campus?
So yeah, I mentioned Westminster Business School in my manifesto is just because the Marylebone campus is known as so, but I didn't really intend to shadow the other faculty that the campus includes. Yeah, because in my manifesto I was actually speaking more about the junior entrepreneurs as part of Westminster Business School. So that's why I have specified as Westminster Business School instead of Marylebone.
Thank you. We've got a question from the current Vice President of Marylebone, Joseph.
Hello, hi. Sorry, I wrote my question down. Are you going to make sure you are keeping up with student issue once you are elected? And mental health is a real issue. I'm surprised that none of the candidates wrote about mental health issue and disability issue. So I'm really surprised about this. Because mental health is something real and something we really need to really deal with. Because I'm a postgraduate student and I've suffered a lot of mental health issue even before I started my sabbatical position, which no one really knew about and which everyone is kind of accusing me about. But I don't know how you're going to be able to really deal with mental health issue. Are you able to really bring professional services on campus to help postgraduate students on campus and also undergraduate students? Because I believe like postgraduate students mostly have mental health issue a lot because they just have 1 year of study and mostly PhD students. I'm really surprised no one is talking about PhD students. Thank you.
So what Joseph's trying to say is that there hasn't been a highlight about disabilities and mental health. What will you do to support students and also postgraduate students as well? Jamila?
As I've said before, I want students to feel that they can come to me with issues. That's why in my manifestos I've always said that the needs are met and the issues I've met. Which really, I haven't really seen the current staff of Marylebone doing, because I never see them in their office, so I don't really see that person tackling any problems. Actually, one time I did see a student that was looking for the SAB in the office, but he wasn't there. Yeah, that's my answer to it.
So I know that Marylebone has different departments that actually helps with this, and I believe also the fact of promoting more the services that that the campus offering is a way to direct people to make use of these services. So I believe this should be a point and promotion of the services that Marylebone is actually offering.
Thank you. I appreciate we've got a lot of questions in the audience, but I'm being told to wrap up. So if you do have questions for the candidates, they'll be free to answer the questions after. But all I want you to do is let students know why you should be VP Marylebone. You've got 30 seconds on why they should vote for you. Should we start with you?
Yeah, sure. So, okay. So as a second-year student, so I've been in the university for a year and a half. I actually faced so many problems as a second-year student, and as all the other students in our campus and our university. So I want to make sure that these problems are solved altogether, and that as a third-year student and all the other students in the university don't face the same problem. And again, I don't really want to vote for me as.
Time's up. Next. Sorry, Jamil.
I'd just like to say that I will be there from the first academic year that comes. You will see me in the office. If there are any issues that you guys have, I will guide you to the correct way and tell you how to fix it or see what I can do about it.
Thank you. Can we have a round of applause for both candidates? And obviously, if you do have any questions for them, then feel free to ask at the end. And we're going to move... no, we haven't got time, sorry. We're going to move straight on to President now. Thank you, candidates. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry about that. So can we welcome onto the stage the candidates for President? Please join me in welcoming Nikki, Prince and Lareb to the stage. So welcome to the stage. I've got a question for all three of you as candidates. The president role requires you to represent all students. What will your approach be in making sure that the student voice is heard? We'll start with you, Lareb.
Hi, I'm Lareb. And also, shout out to everyone watching from Harrow. I know it's hard to get into Central, but I appreciate the views. But the first question was about representation of...
What will be your approach in making sure that the student voice is heard?
So currently I'm aware that the student union has I think Nabil mentioned this too, is the We Are Westminster campaign. So enforcing that and trying to make it an actual label for Westminster rather than it being a monthly thing. So I recently met up with the Islam Society too, and we had a nice brainstorm session where we talked about maybe having an annual fair where cultures, different backgrounds, the LGBTI community can come and we can talk and have annual and general discussions about what makes us so passionate about what we believe in and who we are as people. So I think having just representation and having people who are willing to talk about what they believe in and why would be a great opening.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. A tree cannot make a forest, so they said. I have an assistant president or vice president on all the campuses. I will coordinate with them because only me cannot do it. By the time I coordinate with them, they'll be able to interview or know much about individual campuses, and with them I can be able to know, to express or to know what so that I can know the student voice, what they need, the activities, what they are going through, and everything with the vice president. It will be more easier because I can't do it alone. Thank you.
Nikki?
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, of course. And so I mentioned the president role requires you to represent all students. What will be your approach in making sure the student voice is heard?
Sure. So I agree with the We Are Westminster, which was started by Lauren and Freya carried on, which I think is a great initiative. I would work closely with the representation officers. I think that's greatly important to hear about students' voices that I might not necessarily consider their point of view, because I think to be a Westminster student, I think you need to be open, and to be a president, you need to be inclusive. And I would continue that campaign and work closely with all of those rep officers.
Nikki, you've spoken about implementing an international students' buddy scheme.
Yes.
Why do you think there is a need for this, and what benefit will this have on international students?
Sure. Well, when I was going around speaking to people, international students, they said it was really difficult to fit in when they moved to London, especially those whose first language wasn't English. And I think that's really important in order to get on with their studies and create a new life for as long as they are in London. I would see the programme similar to being like fans, like an extension scheme where people can sign up, volunteer their time if they are second or third year, and in return they can receive like a certificate on here or something like that. And I just think that that would create a more a better community. When I walk around all campuses, I do see groups of people. Like, for example, you'll see groups of Chinese people, you'll see groups of white people, you'll see groups of black students, you'll see students that are Muslim. And for me, I'm very inclusive and I speak to everyone. And I hope that through my campaign, that was noticed. So I just think being able to fit in more would really help international students. Thank you.
Prince, you want to set up a support group for students. What kind of support groups, and who do you want to work with when making this a reality?
Thank you. With my past experience, because my previous institution where I studied, I was the student secretary reps for 2 years. Normally it's supposed to be 1 year, but because of the good job I did, the school decided that, okay, I should remain there for another year. And then getting here, I discovered a lot of things, like some of my colleagues or some of my students, a few of them have suffering from anxiety, diabetes, and other stuff. And with my previous experience, and we have worked previously or something like that, I discovered if I form a group to support the students, like divided into, so in that case, I mean, the student who has the same issue or who is going through the same problem will be able to attend. So in that case, we'll be able to find a solution. Or people have gone through the same issue and then they were able to overcome it. And at the group meeting or whatever, then we'll be able to discuss it. Oh, this is what I went through, this is what I went through. That's how I was able to go to come over it, to overcome it. In that case, it will be able to solve a lot of problems. And people suffering from the same issue will be able to accommodate, and it's not going to affect their studies because it's affecting their studies a lot now, which I discovered. Then in that case, invite people that are specialists in each of the people, what they're like anxiety, diabetes, or alcohol, or people smoking, or want to stop smoking, things like that. We have specialists. So I can invite them each time I form the group meet. This one can talk to them, to tell them what to do and what to do. In that case, you'll be able to solve the problem and the school will live in a better environment. Thank you.
Lareb, you want to help support students who have been sexually assaulted by improving the complaint system. How do you feel the current system is failing these students?
So, first of all, shout out to Lula's consent campaign. That has been fantastic, and I've been a part of that. all the claps. But currently I started as a student union receptionist, and I'm a Harrow-based student. And of course, as you all know, we have the Undercroft, where great events happen, but at the same time, a lot of assaults happen too. And as the forefront of person who sits at the desk of the student union office, I've had many women in particular come in and complain. Now, unfortunately, I'm not trained in these specific talks to basically give he or she the help that she requires. And at most times, I just be there, listen, offer them chocolate if I have, and let them know that they're not alone. Now, why this is one of my manifesto points was specifically because I'm sure we could enforce a police officer or male volunteer one to come in on a weekly or monthly basis and have an actual system where sexual assault victims can come in and comfortably report it, because a lot of the times when they do report it, the student feels as though either the university or the SU is not taking it seriously enough. So if there's some form of police or an authority figure there where they can go to and speak, I feel as though that will make them reassured that something will happen.
Nikki, accessibility is a theme in your manifesto.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to change? And can you tell us how you ensure all campuses are more accessible to students?
Okay, well, I think it's ridiculous that all campuses aren't fully accessible. I don't understand, well, I do actually understand why why disabled students need to use the Regent Street cinema to gain access to Regent Street. I don't agree with that. Thank you, Freya. That's also been an issue in the past when the lift hasn't worked. So you don't want disabled students to study? I disagree with that. Now, I know there's pressure from the council because the building is grade listed 2, I think, which means obviously that it's difficult to pass any kind of proposals to the external features. But I just think that there needs to be a change. I don't think it's fair that students can't gain access. Obviously, there's very little you can do in regards to Harrow students, especially in regards to transport to Harrow, like the tube stop. You can't really do anything about that. But certainly,
there's no lift at the tube either, which is horrible.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't think the uni will, unfortunately. Yeah, so I think if it's your building, you should be able to easily gain access, and that's a legal requirement. But also, thank you. I'd also like to add that accessibility isn't just in my manifesto isn't just for disabled students. It's also accessibility to counsellors, because it takes forever to get an appointment. I'm aware of this, and accessibility to private tutors, etc. So there are different types of accessibility.
Prince, what are your views on accessibility, and how would you improve that?
There's already, because there's nothing you're going to do that is new. There's already a platform on the ground that you have to follow. That's been there already. But right now, I think the accessibility is to all the campuses it's okay. It's not so bad as far as I'm concerned with my own personal view, because I've gone around those places. So that it's okay. The platform that is on the ground is okay for now.
So you feel that the accessibility is okay, and you disagree with what Nikki's saying?
Yeah, to some extent. I mean, I'm not completely disagree, but probably maybe if there's any improvement. For now, I cannot see anything anybody can do to improve it right now, because the platform there is okay.
Do you two have any comments on Prince's view?
I think he may feel different if he was using a wheelchair and couldn't get to lecture.
I agree.
Nareb, you mentioned accessibility and how it is an issue for students at Westminster. How would you propose changing the accessibility for students, and what are your views on it?
So agreeing with Nikki in regards to disability, she's covered what I would also do and hope to do if elected. I'd rather focus on the accessibility in regards to teaching, as well as for students suffering with a invisible disability. So I have many friends who suffer with dyslexia, which at Harrow there's quite a good system in place where they have open sessions at library, and I think they've turned that into a weekly thing now when it used to be 2 to 3 weeks. So I'm not aware of how that works here at central campuses, but I do know that dyslexia is quite open and broad, and it can affect anyone. So there should be help for people who are. And as well as accessibility, as Nikki did mention previously in regards to counselling, I personally have experienced when I went and asked for a meeting because I needed someone to talk to. We all do sometimes. And I emailed through and I asked for a meeting and was told, and I had explained that I'm a commuter, so it takes me about 2 hours to get into university, and asked if I told them my dates. Basically, the way that it was handled was horrendous, and I was quite frankly insulted because what I was ended up being told was that you should seek help outside of the university. Now, God forbid if I was going through something where I just didn't have any other choice. God knows what I could have done, and I feel like that is something that needs to be changed and changed now.
I also want to go on that point and another small point. I've worked at Marylebone Halls before, and every single time in September and in January, the lifts break. Now, I know, being part of the SU, being president of SU, I can't do much about that, but I could put pressure on the university to change that, because there are students. I'll give you one example. There was a student who's on the 17th floor with a guide dog who had to walk down 17 flights of stairs. I don't get it. I do not get it. The other thing is in regards to access to counsellors. I've previously, late last year, I came out as a rape survivor, and someone came to me and said, I have a friend who's been sexually assaulted on campus. Can you speak to her? I said, sure. I tried, I spoke to her. I tried to make an appointment on her behalf with a counselling service because she wanted me to attend with her. That was not possible. And I don't understand why that wasn't possible in a situation like that. So there definitely needs to be a better reporting system, which can be, and I think should be, well, it can be anonymous if you choose it to be, so that you know where to go, because this person spoke to about 5 different members of staff to say, I've been sexually assaulted on campus, and no one knew what to do, which is...
So it's evident that there are accessibility issues, not only physically, but in different areas as well. Listening to your 2 fellow candidates, Prince, do you have a different view on accessibility? And if you were elected as president, how would you approach the different accessibility issues that have been mentioned so far?
Because, we always want to innovate and innovate everything and whatever we have to improve on it. But like Marylebone, for disability or whatever, there's the access there is not bad, but probably we can improve on it. So, and even here, if with the wheelchair can come in here and they can go into the lift and go up there to wherever they want to go, or if it's to the listen. So maybe a little improvement, but there's a platform already that, if followed, is not too bad as far as I'm concerned. So maybe a little improvement. Mm-hmm. So
what would you do to change? Because obviously being a president, you need to be open and listen to everybody's issues and concerns. You say that there's not a problem, but if you did have a student that came to you and did have a problem, how would you tackle that?
I have to go there and view and see if there's the improvement, what can be done to make it better for people to access. In that case, I mean, since that's why I said I have the vice president and the student view. Even I can make a survey. I can ask for surveys to survey how can we improve on social things, if there's any way to improve. if they need anything to improve, from student voice, from student different view, whatever they say. With that, we combine together, we'll be able to know if there's whatever we can do in each of those things. But there are some certain places that you cannot, there's nothing you can do about it. You cannot improve on it. But there are some that probably there's...
Why can't you improve it? As president, why can't you? Why do you not think?
Because I believe there are some places like Marylebone, for instance. The lift is there. I mean, everything is there. So let's assume you come in through this thing with your wheelchair. You can easily access. You can go into the lift and to everywhere. So in that case, are we going to take the lift away, or are we going to need more? No. It's okay. Probably in other campuses, it's possible. There's possibility. But in that case, if there's anything, we have to find a way around it to make sure it's improved and everybody can have access to it.
Because we have a huge reaction on Twitter about accessibility. So obviously it is a huge thing at Westminster. There's one thing here, Ludo's mentioned that talking about accessibility, barriers are not just physical, but embedded in teaching and curriculum. What will each of you do to address that? Would you like to pick up?
One of the points is Jamila, I don't know where she is, but she mentioned a point about anonymous coursework. And I don't think she explained why, but it is apparent that a lot of students, the teachers, although they can't help it, there is a bias towards one student or another. And I know of a lot of students who have faced that bias. So accessibility in regards to coursework as well, and having full and non-biased grading would be something that is essential.
I totally agree with that. I've been in the situation with a seminar leader, and I know that, because of a particular situation that I don't want to talk about, that he graded me differently than what he would have done had it been anonymous. And I don't understand why, especially, there might be some projects where they can't be anonymous. I understand that. But for a lot of, for example, essays and courseworks, you don't need to know who wrote that. You just need to base your opinion, your judgment on the quality of the written piece, not who it was wrote by.
Prince?
Yeah, as I've said before, based on view and things that need to be upgraded will be upgraded in that case, so that to improve student accessibility and everybody. So like there are some classes too, we discovered that the slide was not working, or the light on it. When it's on, you got like a few days ago, I have to switch off all the light and draw the curtain. Things like that had to be improved, had to be upgraded. We have complained about that, something like that. So when we go around, we have to look around to check the one that need upgrading and have to be upgraded so that to bring better view, better thing for people.
Prince, so you say you've conducted risk assessments and discovered security lapses. What lapses in security have you found, and how will you ensure students are safe on campus?
One thing I discovered is that everybody just walking through if you have your card or if you don't have your card, you're just walking through, you touch the card and go inside the campuses.
Can I just say that you cannot get into the university unless you have a card or you have access from a tutor to get signed in. I've tried multiple times.
Listen, I'm still talking. I've not even said...
I just wanted to let you know that
yeah,
that is not allowed.
What I'm trying to say, you've not even listened to me. You have to let me finish first.
Please finish.
Okay. So I discovered that even people that are coming in from that they are coming, nobody's checking them, nobody's checking what they are carrying, nobody's checking their bags, nobody's carrying anything. So there's a way we can do things. I'm not saying everybody that goes in the university, they have to check their bags. But there's devices that can be put in front of the door. If you are coming, you walk through it. If there's anything that's contradicting, it's alarms.
I think Loreb was just saying that with students they can swipe and you're not allowed in unless you have your card. And that's a security issue that obviously Westminster's tried to tackle. So what security lapse have you noticed? Do you mean like people taking their bags in on campus? Was that something you wanted to highlight?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. That because the security labs, and yes, you can swipe your card, but there are people who have seen that even though when they don't have cards, they just say, okay, I come to someone, they say put on their name, they give them a tag and they walk in. They open the door to walk in. That's interesting. There's enough questions are not being asked. Then what I'm talking about security labs, I really said because I went through the university that people just walking with their hunchback and walking and go inside. There's something, I mean, at least students, the environment is supposed to be safe for students. And not even the students alone, for everybody, I mean, working at the university. So what I was trying to say, because of the security labs I was saying, what I was trying to say was that they can put the devices at the door, that people coming with their hunchback, we can walk through it. It's not that, and it's not that they're not going to stop you to check your bag. But the devices that, there are special devices that you put, like a door, that you walk through the door. If there's anything that's considered like ammunition or whatever, it's alarm, then it will raise awareness. So that's what I'm trying to say here.
That's fair enough, sorry. Nikki, I know Narez obviously contributed to Prince's
Yes.
argument. What do you have to say?
Personally, I think there are bigger issues than that. Within the university. Secondly, a risk assessment is not just about security, it's about fire safety, it's about access to campus. Like, I assume you study at Marylebone because you only gave that example. But for example, at Marylebone, usually the two side doors don't always work. Same is the case at Cavendish. So isn't that part of a risk assessment? And thank you. And also, I also don't think it's the SU's duty to provide risk assessment. That's the university's job to make sure that students are safe.
Thank you. So, Lareb, I want to move on to one of your manifesto points. You want to create open communication between students and the university, in particular for students from different backgrounds. So what more do you feel the university could do to provide for students from different cultures, religions and backgrounds?
Well, at the moment, I don't think there is much that they are doing. Simply because I attended, Nikki was there also, prayer room, what was it called? Prayer room...
Consultation?
Consultation, that's the word. There was a prayer room consultation last year, and there was an interfaith team there. They gave us a chance to basically discuss the issue that went down in Harrow. I don't know if many people know what happened, but they've basically turned the prayer room that is in Harrow campus into a multi-faith room. But for every other campus, Marylebone, Regents, Cavendish, they've given a completely separate room for it to become a multi-faith room, but then still enlisted their separate prayer rooms for Muslim and Islamic students to pray. Now the issue here is that although we voiced our opinions and our complaints, the interfaith team were very stern and had nothing to say in regards to, yes, we will help, yes, we will take your advice and we will actually help and listen to what students want. There was nothing like that. And there was no reassurance that they will listen to what we want and actually do it. And this is the issue because there's a lot of talk about Westminster being one of the most cultural and open universities in the English-speaking world, but they're not doing anything. There's no representation for what we need and what we are asking them to do, and even when we tell them what we want, they still haven't done it. This was a year ago in October or September, I'm not sure, and we're in February 2018, and they've already announced that they're going to have multi-faith room sessions in Harrow, and they still haven't figured out the issue for the prayer room in Harrow. There's no communication.
Nikki, what are your views on Lareb's manifesto point?
I definitely agree. As Lareb said, I was also at that prayer room consultation. I wanted to hear what students were going through, what issues they were going through. I disagreed with, firstly, what the university did, and secondly, how they did it. There was no communication with student body, just a sign on the door. That is not good enough. If you decide to make changes that affect the students. You need to let them know. But also, you need to see whether it's cool with them, surely. Like, this university has a lot of Muslim students, and you need to be able to cater to their needs. So it kind of confuses me why, for example, the campuses don't sell much halal food. I don't get that, personally. It doesn't affect non-Muslims to eat halal food. So yeah, I don't think they're really taking into account the voices. They're not listening, and they need to.
Prince, how would you address this issue, and what are your views on Lareb's manifesto point? What are your views on the discussion we've just had about Lareb's manifesto point?
Is it the prayer room?
No, it's just open communication between all students.
My view, to be candid, I mean, they are not enough communication, because there are a lot of things that was going on, like some of my classmates, when they had issues, and I had to go and meet the course leader to discuss on certain things, and they asked me to send an email, which I did, and it did not reply on time, and the students were so worried, they were disturbed because I'm the student reps for class reps. So, and I have to go back again. I went back to my course leader. Some said, so it's not his fault. We have to wait. So that was in December. We waited for, nothing was done. And at the end of the day, it's by the time they came back to me, already everybody has gone on holiday. So the communication line is not really effective. It's not good enough, which needs to be improved.
Mm-hmm. So it's evident that communication does need to be improved at Westminster. I have a Twitter question from Freya for all three of you. She's the current president here at Westminster, and as president, you have to balance meetings from being front-facing. You have to balance meetings and being front-facing. How will you do this, and how will you manage students who are angry that they never see you on campus? Nikki.
So, firstly, I would have an open session where people can come and see me. And secondly, I thought it would be probably a good idea to do some kind of like a blogging feature. So at the end of every week, let people know what you've been doing, to show that even though you're working behind the scenes, you're working hard for them. And your VPs are there as your first point of call. So yes, that's what I would do.
Lareb, what will you do?
I completely agree with Nikki that that was a similar idea I had, but rather than blogging, doing videos. So currently, Tom Owen is working on a piece where he's doing the life of a day in the life of a SAB, and those videos have been brilliant in basically them reinforcing the manifesto points that they had at the beginning of the year, and they're basically saying, look, this is what I've done, and I'm still doing it, and this is what I'm going to do next. So having more videos of them is not only more fun, but it's a lot less reading and a lot more eye-catching too. So a YouTube channel for the SABs.
What will you do, Prince?
Yeah, because the vice president and each campus have student reps. So whatever they have, I mean, like I said previously, even one of my manifesto, that maybe weekly I have to meet with my vice president to find out what is going on in each campuses. Then they have the duty to find out from the student reps of each course or this, so to find out what is going on within the distance. In that case, by the time we meet, then I've made it a point of this. I made it a point of this that at least once in a month I go to each campus to find that they sit down with the student reps and the vice president, then communicate with them, find out the issues. If there's any problem, they will look for a way to tackle it.
So I've got another question for you all. You'll not only be a representative of students, but also a trustee, and working closely with the university. How will you balance champion student voice and making tough decisions? We'll start with you, Prince.
Can you come again, please? Sorry.
Yeah, sure. So you'll not only be a representative of students, but you'll also be a trustee, and working closely with the university. So how will you balance championing student voice and making tough decisions?
With my experience, I have to meet the authority. I mean, there are people in the school, in the authority that can meet to discuss this with, and with the student reps and with their voice, and the vice presidents. So they'll be able to meet them and discuss the issue and find out what is going on. So then with the school, because I have to meet them, I mean, every the school authority, like every once in a month as well. So
Sorry, you mentioned a lot about vice presidents, but what if you can't meet with the vice presidents as much as you'd hope to? What would you do as the president?
Then I have to meet the student reps. I can send emails to every one of them that if there is any issue, I mean, the office, they can send email, they can send me a letter, they can send email, they can call me and make myself accessible to everyone. So my phone number will be there, my email will be there. If I cannot, so they can get to me directly. In that issue, it can fast track the issue instead of delaying the how I can have those problems, or how those issues can be solved. Then I can bridge the gap between me and the authority in that case.
Yeah. Thank you. Nikki?
To be honest, going in as president would be a learning curve, but I'll get over it quick if I were to be elected. I feel like I'd be impartial. I'll take out my personal opinion and listen to both sides, because you have to wear two hats. But I wouldn't feel... I'm quite a determined person, so I feel like I would be able to really express my opinion properly as a trustee. Thank you.
I think in regards to having the different roles and wearing the different hats, it's pretty much something you'd have to do even when you start a new job. So having a basic understanding of that you need different faces, I guess, to have when approaching a student body, but then approaching a trustee board is essential. And I think that a lot of the time the student body forgets that the president is not only a part of the students and therefore the students, but she or he will have to actually report back to the board. So maybe more exposure as to how the president and what he or she does is very different to what the vice president does. So that way the student body understands as well why sometimes what they say and what they need is not always done ASAP.
Thank you. So we have a question on Twitter from Dan. He says, you have a year in office and you have to juggle many different responsibilities. Delivering for students is the most basic task for the SU. So if you had to pick one priority project, what would it be? Lorette?
I wish you gave me a chance to think. No, it's fine. Could you repeat the question?
Of course. So you all have 1 year in office and you have to juggle many different responsibilities. Delivering for students is the most basic task for the SU. So if you had to pick one priority project, what would it be?
I think most definitely communication between the university and the student body, because if that issue is not dealt with, then most students will still be left wondering why certain things aren't happening or wondering why it's been taken away. An example would be, I'm a current third year for contemporary media practice at Harrow campus, and we basically, a month and 2 weeks left to one of our major deadlines, we were informed that our final major degree exhibition space had been taken away from us. And this was something that we were told as soon as we came back, with 2 to 3 deadlines to do and with no explanation as to why. And thank God that there were so many other CMP students and Harrow students who were like, this is not right. So we were able to start up a petition, and alhamdulillah, that got up to 2,000 likes. Like, honestly. And I was amazed by the support. And eventually, if it wasn't for Freya, who brought it up at the trustee board as well, and then they told them to give it back, we probably would be, I wouldn't even be here. I'd probably be fundraising right now for my degree show. So I think communication between the university and the student body is vital. It puts students under a lot of pressure and stress. I cannot explain to you the way it affected my fellow CMP students, and it, in a way, it crushed us. So, communication, guys. We won! We won!
Thank you. Prince.
Our inter-campus sport competition. Because one thing I discovered is that the student in Marylebone, most of them, they don't even know the students say, those one here, they don't know the one in Harrow. We create an event that will bring them together. So that in that case, because something like sport is one thing that can unite everybody easily. So in that case, that's one thing I will do. I mean, competition. When you say competition with a rewarding gift, people will be interested in it. In that case, I'll be able to mix them together. Then they'll be able to know each other. I mean, a lot of things. And that's one thing I will do, so that I can create good communication and cooperation and friendly and friendship between the campus. Thank you.
Nikki?
Whilst I think communication is really important, going on Lareb's point, I also think accountability is. Obviously, there's been a SAB who just kind of hasn't been around much. I've been trying to find him throughout my campaigning period, and yeah, he wasn't in the office and no one knew where they were. Also, as president of the LGBTI Society, we have an LGBTI officer for the uni. No idea where he is. Tried to get in contact with him. So have SABs and the SU. I don't know where the accountability is, and I think that's why I want to be held accountable. That's why my manifesto is so specific, because if I don't do it, tell me, approach me and say, we're holding you accountable, and I'll give you a reason as to why I haven't been able to implement what I've said I want to implement.
Thank you. I've got a question from Ludo on Twitter for all candidates. Oftentimes, you represent your vice presidents as well as the other students at Westminster. Where will you draw the line between your own agenda and serving the student body? Prince.
Can you come again, please? Because I'm just thinking.
Yeah, so often times you represent your vice presidents and also the students at university.
Yes.
Where will you draw the line between your own agenda and serving the student body?
Yeah, my vice president is part of the student reps, and the student body. We are all representing the student body actually. But if there's any incident or if there is anything that happened, maybe, I have to meet the student body first, because my vice president can understand the issue. I've discussed with him, then meet the student body so that I can resolve the issue, because I've not made them together. His own duty is different from the student body. Because without the student body, I will only be there. He himself will not be there to represent the student. So I had to meet them now, so I can't meet them together. I have to resolve with the student body first before getting back to him.
Lareb?
To answer it quite simply, why would I have an agenda other than helping my students? Because at the end of the day, I would get the job because the students believe that I will do what is on my manifesto points. And if I have a secret agenda, forgetting why am I even running for this position? Like, it's simple, black and white, just like my design. I'm here for the students. I have my points. I've done my research. Even throughout campaigning, I've had students come to me and tell me what their issue is. And through social media, if anyone follows me, I have implemented that throughout too, that I'm here for you. I want to help you. I don't have any other agenda than to help. Let me help you.
Nikki?
I feel the same way. Like, being elected as president, I don't have an agenda. I want to help all students. I want to improve students' experience at Westminster. That isn't just one particular group, one particular person. That's everyone.
Thank you. So I've got one final question for you, Nikki, before we open it up to the audience. So you said you want to diversify income stream. What areas do you think the SU could venture into?
Okay, well, the SU shop was closed down at Cavendish because it was losing money. Obviously, there's also been a bar previously at Marylebone. The university do actually own premises, a lot of premises. £50 million on 2 buildings is quite a lot of money, and with no long-term infrastructure, if you run out of money, you run out of money. I suggest, a central London space, like a one-stop shop, where we can have an event space, where we can have an SU shop. Or there is another premises that the university own, which is a pub. We could have a student union bar in central London. There are student union bars in central London that do very well. I know because I visit them. And I know that one of the current VPs has attempted to collaborate with one of them student bars, which wasn't possible. So I'll look into that avenue. And I just think that they don't utilise everything that they could. For example, at graduation, they don't sell as much merchandise as what they could do. It's cool having T-shirts, jumpers, but what about other merchandise? What about, especially for international students that are just visiting for a year, what about cups? What about umbrellas? What about, everything that you could use on a daily basis?
Thank you. So I'm going to open the floor to some questions for our wonderful candidates. Do we have it done?
I actually saw a Twitter question that's really interesting. It says, it's by James Larvin. Don't know where he is. Shout out to you, mate. But I hearted it. He said, the majority of students don't care about this election. The people in this room thought tonight accounts for just 0.2% of the student body, and voter turnout is consistently low. How will you convince people to care about you and the SU? Great question, James.
That was a great question. Can I go first?
Yeah, Loreb, go first.
I've said this even whilst campaigning. Ludo, come on, man. I've said this even whilst campaigning and talking to other students, that it's a 50-50 thing. It can't just constantly be the SU shouting out and being like, yo, this is happening, posters everywhere, emails, everything. They are being sent out. But if students don't care, we have to start forcing them in a way to tell them what is going to make them care. Because at the end of the day, the university would be nothing without its students. So if a student has an issue, if a student wants us to make something better, they need to reach out. Otherwise, we don't know what to do. And I think that is the best way to answer it, that reach out.
Thank you. Prince?
Yeah, I believe there was not enough publications, because there are a lot of students that are approached, and when I was talking to them, they never even knew there's an election coming up. You have to convince them, you have to talk to them with the poster. Even some of them, when they saw the posters there, they would say, oh, what's happening? They never knew. So there's not enough publications. In that case, if there was enough publication, it would have been able to even convince a lot of people you have little to do as a candidate. Then you have to talk to a lot of them. So in that case, they will be able to get them involved. And maybe next this we can go to classes or putting this in the classes or in the blackboard for everybody to be able to for the awareness of all the students. It's because there are lack of awareness. That's why we are facing that problem. Maybe if that is improved next time, we won't have a problem concerning that.
Thank you. Nikki?
It's a really good question. I agree with Loreb's point that it's a 50-50 give and take situation. I think the SU try and get students involved, but I think there are different methods that they can use. I think the biggest issue is communication. So I would think about how to communicate in different ways. For example, Nabil was talking about interactive screens. Not everyone wants to check their email addresses. Not everyone does. So I think there needs to be that needs to be put across more. Also, I think technology needs to be utilised more in general with the university. I think it lacks in that. For example, I know me and Lareb used QR codes, and technology is great. Why don't we make the best use of it?
Thank you. Do we have any more questions from the floor?
I have a Twitter question from Lucy Lavery. As the university is pushing for equality, why do we never showcase women's sport as the final varsity event? And what are you going to do to resolve this?
Thank you for the question, Lucy. I think the way that can be implemented is, again, with, as Nikki mentioned, Nabil's point, and one of Jamila's points as well in her manifesto, is in regards to having society and sport updates on the TVs that are around the campuses. Like, look behind you, there is a TV right there, and it's not even on. Literally, you could have something on there going, a PowerPoint presentation about what's happening, where it is, what's going on, but it's not being used. And I think another way that we could do that is by using the officers. Like the women officer, she could have a campaign, or one of her points could be to enforce spreading of women's sports, male sports. Just more awareness of that there are societies going around, and a lot of the societies, especially the dragons, work very, very hard. So more awareness of it, and as Nikki said as well, more use of technology.
Thank you. Nikki? Nikki?
As Reb said about my point, use of technology. The biggest thing that I'd implement, I guess, is an app, UWSU app. Currently it's part of the Westminster app, and it's just a static page. Previous VPs from like 2 years ago are on there. No updates whatsoever. Not everyone wants to check on their laptops. Not everyone really wants to check on their phone. Some people want to receive a push notification about an event that's happening. Some people want to, for example, for societies to be able to sign up on their phones rather than go through the palaver of what arrivals has been like in the past. So I think utilise technology to promote is first and foremost very important to create a bigger and better community.
Thank you. Prince?
I think they have to introduce incentives. In this case, it will encourage people. Then, because of there's not enough publication, like as Nikki said, not everybody check their email. But you can put this on Blackboard. There's no how a student will not go through the Blackboard because of the course or whatever you're going to do. If they put it on the Blackboard, everybody will be able to access it, everybody will be able to see it. In that case, it can give more room, and with incentives, to be able to encourage people to participate more. Thank you.
Yesterday in the Harrow VP debate, obviously the social calendar was mentioned. I know, speaking to other students, that they don't feel that there is enough going on in terms of events. And I know, having friends all over London and in other universities in the UK, that our events and social calendar doesn't live up to not only the rest of the UK but London specifically. So what ideas do you have to improve the calendar that we have currently?
As I've said earlier, publication one. Then in competition across the campuses, competition like sport competition with rewarding gifts, that will encourage people. And because there are less people that are participating. Even a lot of people are not even aware, because I was asking someone about where can they play football the other time. I was asking 2, 3, 4 people, nobody knew. They are not aware. They say, oh, they're not really participating in sports here, which is not true. It's because there are lack of awareness. People are not really aware. No, they are not giving enough publication to all those things, to events, and mostly sports. Sports is something that can bring people together, that can unite the other universities and other campuses. Then be able to know people. So if they can improve on the awareness to let people know, probably it will be better off, and then we can compete with other universities.
Thank you. Nikki?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Basically, what more can the SU do in terms of organising events? For example, nothing really happens at the weekend. We're encouraged to go into central London, despite the fact that students, we can't really afford to drink or go out there. And it's not just about, obviously, drinking events. There's not a lot that goes on in the way of, coffee mornings or whatever. It is all kind of run through the societies, but it shouldn't just fall to the societies. The SU, as the figureheads, should also be organising events more regularly, and not just at Harrow, obviously.
Yeah, so firstly, the Wednesday afternoon evenings should remain off limits for classes, so that Dragons can carry on doing the great work that they do, first and foremost. I also think I've recently created an inter-university collaboration with other LGBTI societies in central London. So I think the university could actually try and assist in that. So, for example, we have a great film society, and there are lots of other local great film societies. Why can't they work together? So that's what I would do.
Nareb?
I have to agree with you, because as someone who doesn't drink, there isn't much events that are based around that. But one of my manifesto points is in regards to more representation for cultures and backgrounds and etc. is that I'm aware that at Regents the dean hosts a free lunch for its students. Am I right? So one of my ideas for that was talking to the dean, of course, and allowing campuses to come and turn that into maybe a weekend dinner thing, but rather than the dry sandwiches that I see, have actual cultural representation. So having a Indonesian food night, Indian food night, and that way that can connect universities and the different campuses of Westminster in one room in the deep end, and just talk, mingle, food, free. Central.
So I'm going to wrap it up, but you've got 30 seconds to let students know. I've got people shaking their head at me. Can we ask one more question? Oh.
This question is not going to live up to it now that we've done all this. Being a president is really, really hard. How are you going to manage 4 vice presidents who all have their own agenda, all have their own manifesto, and you are accountable for all of them? So how are you going to make sure that they're doing what they've said they're going to do?
Nikki?
So, as I mentioned earlier, I previously worked at Marylebone Halls. I was the senior RA there, which meant that I supervised, I guess you could say, RAs, and that wasn't just in Marylebone, that was also in Wembley, that was also in Lambeth North, and that was in Hoxton too. So they were also spaced out, is what I'm saying, like other VPs. In order to get around that, I regularly met up with them, or took phone calls or Skype appointments, just to double check that firstly they were on track, and that they didn't need any more support than what I was already giving, to making sure that they could fulfil their duties as VP, which would relieve me and know that their campus was doing well. So that's what I'll do.
Prince?
nothing good really come easy. I mean, I know I have to make a lot of sacrifice. I'm more devoted to the time. So as we have cost reps, vice presidents, and then weekly, I mean, weekly I have to meet each one of them to see the progress, to see how far they've gone, to see the challenges and see what they are facing. In that case, I'll be able to support them. Then monthly, I will meet each student reps with the vice president to find out if there's any issue, so that I can support them. In that case, I can control and see if they are really doing according to their promises. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I'm aware of that the student union receptionists, they do a system where they have to email their head receptionist what they've done in the day of their shift. At the end of the shift, they have to email them and tell them, this is what I've done, this is who came in, a general overview. So maybe enforcing that upon the vice presidents every month or so, and having so that I know and I'm in the loop of what they're doing, and then I can, if a student comes and says, I have an issue with this, I'm going to be like, oh, my VP at Cavendish is already on that, go see her. Or even just in general, making sure that there's no loose ties within the team, because I can see from you three that you guys are basically a family. So when you become a president, when it was at the South Talk, Freya actually mentioned that a president basically gains 4 kids. And if that is the case, then I feel like I'm already a mum, so.
So each of you have 30 seconds to let students know here and at home why should they vote for you. Lareb.
I was going to say don't be a pleb, vote for Lareb. But I thought, what better way to enforce why you should vote for me than with my wonderful manifesto and poster design that was made by Rodrigo. Thank you, I love you so much. That is black and white. It's not because I'm cheap, it's because I know art and I respect a good design when I see it. So just like my poster and my design and my manifesto points, I'm black and white, and
time's up, Laura.
I'm simple.
Prince?
Everyone has got a dream. You have your dream, what you want to become, what you want your student reps, your president, what your expectation. Your dreams is my responsibilities. Combined together is our success. So if you vote me in, we'll be successful. Vote for me. Vote for better Westminster University. Thank you.
Nikki?
My biggest flaw is that I'm really stubborn. And I know that I'll work for the students and for the university to be the best president that I can be. I'll work closely with the VPs, as I have been doing with Ethel and Dan, and I will listen to what the university, what the students are saying. I will listen and act upon that.
Thank you. So I want to thank you all for coming tonight, and those of you tuning in online. I just want to let you know that the first Student Council and for your chance to have your say is on the 1st of March, and we need you to make sure that all student voice is heard. So check out uwsu.com for more information, or speak to the sabbatical officer team. Also, I want to thank Smoke Media this evening for live streaming the event, for their hard work last night and today. And I also want to say a massive thank you for Tom for supporting the team as well.
Yes, Tom. Come on, mate. Yes.
And I just want to let people know here and people know at home that Smoke Media are recruiting for several positions. The QH are recruiting for sports editor and head of marketing. Smoke Radio are recruiting for head of journalism. And Smoke TV are recruiting for head of factual and head of music. So if you are interested in any of those positions, come and talk to me at the end or some of the Smoke Media team. And also you can check out last night's question time on facebook.com/SmokeTV. And reactions and highlights for tonight will be available online. So good luck to all candidates and good night.
Voting opens on Monday.
Oh, wait. Leave it. Alright, guys, well done. 1, 2. Could the president candidates please go through to the old gym so you can do your reaction videos? Please follow Alexius. He's wearing the blue shirt. And student council's on the 2nd of March, not the 1st. Tell a joke. I don't have a joke. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming through. I hope this was an insightful evening. And we'll see you next week, Thursday, for the results night up in Harrow in the loft. And congratulations to all the candidates. It's over. That's halfway. Guys, that's next week, Thursday, in the loft in Harrow at 7 p.m. We'll find out who our new representation officers and sabbatical officers are going to be. And NUS to deal with this. Guys, if you could please take your rubbish with you, that would be much appreciated. Oh, and guys, voting's next week from Monday. It's really, really easy. Literally, there'll be a video that will come out as soon as I can get the voiceover done. Yeah.